Hey crafters, welcome back to She's Crafty Paperworks. If you're new here, my name is Jen and I make cards and post them on the internet. So today we are diving into a fun project, a floral spring birthday card for my mother-in-law. I pulled out some of my favorite Spellbinder dies, some gorgeous Concord and Ninth cardstock, and that's as far as I've gotten. So let's get to crafting and see what we can create. Okay, let's start with the colors that I'm using. My mother-in-law likes purple, so I chose lilac and fig. And for a contrast, I went with nectar, grapefruit, and sorbet, which I love these three colors together. And then I went with, for the greens, I went with sea glass and juniper. For the dyes, this is Simon Hurley, the tulip trio. For this one, I'm going to hold off on that one. That one's a little too big. And I'm not going to do the Gerber daisies. I'm going to focus more on the smaller ones. This is the Be Bold Blooms die. I do believe that my dog is going to take out the TV I have on squirrel television. I may have to go turn that off here in a second. Alright, so this one is Club Blooms. Okay, cat TV has been turned off. The TV is safe. I should have known better. Anybody out there have a dog or a cat that watches television? We have 3 dogs, but Zelda is our only one that watches TV rather regularly, especially if there are animals on screen. That also includes birds and squirrels. I was hoping for the spring sounds, but yeah, that didn't go. All right, anyway, what I'm doing here is I'm just getting the die cuts going. My goal here is to make a large amount of die cuts, and that's because I'm looking to have lots of variety, lots of different colors. I will probably get maybe 3 or 4 cards off of what I'm planning on making, and then that way I can have more options to play around with, but also get more cards out of it. In all, it took me about 2 hours of die cutting. Now, when I'm doing bulk card making, that's a typical amount. I am more likely to do it in the evening than I am while we're watching television, for example, than I am during the day. But because I had nothing planned for this, I went ahead and put on some YouTube and watched some card making and die cut at the same time. Just due to the sheer amount of die cuts that I made, I opted against doing any kind of ink blending. If I had reined myself in a little bit, I probably would have done some ink blending at the bases of the flowers to give a little bit more dimension and depth. But this was a lot, so I just went right into assembly. The next consideration was going to be on the foundation of my card bases. So to help build that foundation, I have cover plates that I used for 3 of the cards. And then for all 4 cards, I broke out my stash of nesting dies to, again, help build that foundation for the flowers, which will be my focal point. By the way, the cover plates that I'm using are Concord and Ninth. That's the one on the left that I used for the purple card. And the one that I used for the last two cards that I'm showing here, that comes from Pink Fresh Studios. The stamp I used for the inside of all four cards came from Penny Black, and I believe it was called Delightful Day. I sped this portion up because it took me 52 minutes to put all four cards together. Now that may seem like a long time, and some of you may do this process much quicker. I do have a little bit of indecisiveness when it comes to this part, but this is my favorite part. I think it's the favorite part for a lot of longtime crafters just because this is the design process, right? This is where we get to be creative and create. But I also recognize that for people that are new to card making or new to die cutting, this can be a little bit of a frustrating process because you don't know where to begin. And so in that regard, I would just recommend put stuff down and then go back and edit and re-edit until you like it. There's only one card that I kept the same, and that was the second card. Everything else changed drastically. At this point, I have two options. I can glue from a picture, or I can use press and seal. And I'm opting to go with press and seal because I find going from the picture can be a lot longer and a little bit more tedious. And by just cutting a small rectangle, this one piece will last me for all four cards. And it's just a matter of slowly pressing down everything, make sure everything's connected, and then you lift up and glue. From there, you can start positioning it to where it was, press it down, and I like to give it a second as long as I'm not having any kind of bleeding from the glue. Once I get that adhered, then I feel that it's pressed in, I can start lifting up that press and seal and then move on to the next card. I did run into a small problem with the third card. In that bottom right corner, I got a smudge, and when I was trying to remove it with the sand eraser, I was a little too aggressive and I took up some of the cardstock. So I scattered those little purple flowers around just to hide that mistake and then also create some unity. For the sentiments, I opted to go with a couple different looks. For the die cuts, especially that which was sitting on just the white, I added a second layer to help build it up so that they would sit flat. And then for the other two on either end, that's from a Better Press, and I double stacked them and they were able to sit right on top evenly. For embellishments, I opted to use for this card the clear dewdrops. I'm calling this one card number 3. And what I'm doing is just adding Concord and Ninth nectar drops, enamel drops, to the centers of all those purple flowers that I added to cover that one mistake I made with tearing the cardstock just a little bit. I also opted to embellish this card a little bit further by adding glossy accents, which I'll show in a second. These embellishments, I believe, come from Amazon. I've had them for a while. They are meant to look like cut diamonds. They're faceted with the different cuts like that. Very pretty. They're especially pretty in a shaker card. By the way, the dish that I'm using, that's just a soap dish. It's like a dollar store soap dish. I just needed something that was square or triangular so that I could easily pour the gemstones back in. This embellishment is from This Calls for Confetti. They're called satin silver pearls. I wanted to match the satin silver of the cardstock that I was using, which came from Tonic, by the way. All right, so here are the 4 cards, and my husband and I were looking them over to decide which one we wanted, and we sort of ruled out number 4 because it doesn't emphasize the purple. And in that, he likes number 1 because it's the most purple, but he also likes number 3. I'm kind of partial to, I like all of them for certain reasons, but for number 2, I like that he helped and make it, only because when you come into my craft room, I'm going to put you to work. And I gave him a punch to help punch out all those little petals. And I thought, well, he helped participate, so that should be at least a contender. But each of us have gone back and forth with number 3 being our first choice. So we just aren't sure. And number 4 is a perfectly lovely card, and it does have purple in it. It's just not emphasized the way the others are. So this brings us to where we are, and that is we can't decide. So I asked my husband if he minded if I just asked all of you to participate, and he said, no, go ahead, bring it on. I promise that this isn't a ploy to get more comments or anything like that. There's no hidden agenda. It's just for fun. And because we were undecided, I was curious to see which one you would pick. So have fun with it. If you participate, great. If not, no worries. And I'm going to stop there. So next week, I will see you for more card making inspiration and tutorials. I post on Saturdays, and I am sorry for missing last Saturday, but I have many midterms to grade. Have a great week, everyone. Bye.